So I'm currently upstairs. It is extremely windy outside and everything in my body hurts because I've been outside in that wind and had to do things and it was not fun. But now I want to get into the. I thought about it. It's technically that I want to get into the details of creating intrigue, both as a genre and as a or pseudo genre. It still, I still don't see how the intrigue alone can create a story, but it can be the main emphasis of a story. Uh, that is then technically another genre, but that's all pedantic. That's all about splitting hairs. So it's both designed. I should say that differently. I'm both thinking of how to design intrigue as a genre and as just something that is part of a completely different story, something in the background. Intrigue as in the foreground and intrigue in the background. I've also thought about how to split it between low and high intrigue, and I don't think that's really anything that's going to be a problem. The matter of low and high intrigue is not so much what you do or even how you do it, it's how much you do it. You can have low intrigue with some interesting relations between um, different parts in the story without it getting out of control. If it's only a few relations that are maybe a surprise, maybe not a surprise, they can still be unusual and still be low intrigue. High intrigue is more a matter of quantity. And of course, quantity opens up a lot of opportunity for quality. You have more opportunity for relations to influence one another. Um, I'm mad at you, and therefore I'm going to hurt someone you like, which is why someone else is angry at me, and they may take it out on you because you're the reason I hurt someone they like. That's just four, uh, let's call them characters in this case, four characters that have a complicated relation to one another in a story. But if you crank that up to 10 or 12 characters, then you start getting high intrigue. And if they have some kind of effects on the world around them and and the way they hurt or help one another, then it just gets more complicated by that. So I'm not going to differentiate between low and high intrigue. That is how you use these tools. It's not a matter of the tools themselves. And what I want to start with is intrigue that is built on personal relations. Oh yeah. Also, it's intrigue that I'm focusing on, but this is essentially about relations between people and things and stuff and that, um, which can be used outside intrigue. It can be used as clues in mysteries, for example, and it can be used as exposition to drive the plot of anything really, thriller, action, horror. Um, but if you focus on it, it starts to become intrigue, and the more of it there is, and the more you focus on it, the more it starts to be about the intrigue. So again, it's not exactly about the tools themselves, it's about how you use it. A hammer can be a murder weapon, it can be a building tool, or it can just be something that you accidentally drop on your toe and hurt yourself with. It's not about the tools, it's about how you use them. So let's dig into the basic kind of relation, which is personal relations. I'm not talking about PR firms. I'm talking about relations between individual people, not groups of people, not large organizations, not families, but one-to-one relations, because a lot of intrigue is going to be built on that. You can essentially build intrigue entirely on that. It's difficult and probably impossible to build intrigue that has no personal relations involved, at least as far as I know. Um, Without personal relations, it's not so much intrigue, it's just interesting background lore. This place was used by this cult, and so on. Um, it only really becomes intrigue when there are people involved who react based on the intrigue. So personal intrigue is kind of where it all blossoms from. So what is personal intrigue? Personal intrigue at its core is two people who have a an idea about how they want the other to be, what they want the other to experience. Um, does one want to protect the other? Does one want to hurt the other? Does one want the other to grow as a person? Does one want the other to be stunted and isolated? Does one want the other to live in fear, even without hurting them, or perhaps just not hurting them much? Does one want the other to succeed greatly? Does one want the other to benefit them in some way, either one that drains the other or one that empowers the other? What does one person want for the other? And the first question here is this a one-way street? Is one person just interested in affecting the other person's life, but the other is not interested in doing anything back? The other might not even know about the first person. Let's call them person A and person B. Does person A, well, person A wants to influence the other's life, but does person B want to influence person A? Or is it just a one-way thing? Person B might know about person A. They might know about what person A wants for them. They might know about how person A tries to do it for them. In which case, person B will probably have some kind of reaction or opinion about it. A reaction is usually something that happens when person A does a certain thing. If person A tries to um, make person B happy by doing a certain thing, let's say by giving them a present, then person B will have a reaction to that. That reaction can be basically anything, but it will be telling of how person B feels about the relation. But person B might also have an opinion about the whole thing. And that is more long term. An opinion only arises when person B knows that person A wants something to happen and most likely has tried more than once to make it happen. If person B wants, if person A, sorry, if person A wants person B to be happy, and person A keeps trying to help person B, tries giving them gifts, tries cheering them up, then each time it happens, person B is going to have some kind of reaction to it. That reaction could be confusion, it could be annoyance, it could be gratitude, it could be complete lack of reaction, so to speak, ignoring it. It could also be a complete lack of reaction. Person B might not even notice that person A is trying, which is kind of sad in a lot of cases. If person A tries to give person B a present and person B just doesn't realize that the present is even there, or doesn't realize that it's a present, or doesn't realize that it's from person A, that can be that's technically a reaction, but it's just not much of one. Um, but over time, as person A tries more and more to make person B happy, person B may develop an opinion about it, which is going to greatly influence reactions. It's not necessarily a direct influence. If person B starts to get annoyed about person A constantly wanting to try to cheer them up, person B may, if person B reacts directly, they will try to make person A stop, maybe scolding them, maybe deliberately ignoring them, maybe asking them politely to stop. But person B may also react differently. Person B may not want this to continue, may dislike the attention, may be annoyed by the constant actions. It might actually cause problems if person A is not really aware of person B's situation, or if person A is just not really that socially aware in general. They may be a problem. They may draw attention to person B. Person B may be trying to hide their unhappiness. Person B might not even be unhappy. Person A might just think that person B is unhappy. Um, so person B might react differently than expected. Um, Person B might ignore it. They may um, scold it, as I mentioned. They may also try to stop it, um, but they may also just politely pretend that they're okay with it, hoping that it will go away. Or person B might even be too scared to react honestly. Maybe person A is very powerful. If a powerful person wants you to be happy and gives you gifts, you don't usually scold them. You try to just say thank you and kind of get away from the situation. So there are many reactions and there are many opinions that can form over time, and opinions may change. Maybe person B starts out disliking the attention, but then starts to like it over time, or maybe they just start out by being annoyed by it, and over time they become actively angry. And it may have, as I said, it may have consequences for person B. Someone could get jealous. Someone could get angry at person A for bothering person B, and so on. And that's another relation that can be attached to it, and that relation will also have reactions and opinions. But if you want the relation to be simple to describe, start out with what person A wants for person B, then whether person B is even aware of it, and if person B is aware of person A's actions, at least, maybe not their intentions, but their actions. They may not understand that person A wants them to be happy. They may think person A wants something in return from them. Um, Start with what person A wants for person B, and what person A believes about person B. Does person A believe that they are unhappy, or is it just because they want to make people happier? Um, and whether that belief is even correct. Maybe, again, maybe person A thinks person B is unhappy, but person B is perfectly fine. Person A is just projecting something, or misunderstanding something. And then person B's reaction for individual situations and overall opinion of it. And then you can go on to the consequences that it has for person B, whatever person A is doing. And then you can switch it around. What does person B want for person A? Do they just want person A to stop or to continue? Or do they want to reciprocate and give something back? Do they want something completely different, something completely unrelated, or seemingly unrelated at least? Maybe person A wants person B to be happy, while person B just wants person A to pay attention to their career and be successful there. The two need not be directly connected. And whatever is true for what person A wants for person B, the same is true for the reverse relation. And you can set it up the same way. Between two people, relations can be either very simple or very complex. Um, and that means that you can technically have a low intrigue storyline that is only between two people, but it still has a lot of depth because their relations are a bit complex. If it gets too complex, then even between two people, it starts to creep into high intrigue, um, and should be targeted mainly at people who like that kind of thing. Low intrigue and high intrigue, none of those are better than the other, and it's all on a scale from 1 to 1 billion. You can pick how high the intrigue should be. None of them are better than the other. It's all about taste. It's all about what you want. It's all about what the people hopefully enjoying the story want. Um, but when you have what they're basically doing, then you can start to expand relations with feelings. Um, how do they feel about each other? How do they feel about the situation? How do they feel about the reaction of the other? And that is going to be most significant when person B is aware of person A. There are situations where, or I should perhaps go into a couple of examples before I continue. Emotions, they're basically the extension of opinions. It can be anger that starts to drive the relation. It can be sadness. It can be compassion. It can be vengefulness. It can be love. It can be idolation, which is kind of a little different from love. Even though someone idolizing someone else is usually not going to see that difference. I need to get a mosquito away. But it is different. And you can construct a whole new, you can set this up very much as a modular kind of toolkit. How to create a relation, um, what does one want for the other, how is it reciprocated, and so on. What opinions, what reactions are caused, what emotions are created, and you can create different standard versions. You can create different standard reactions, different standard opinions, different standard intentions, and you can, of course, have different standard emotions, and you can mix and match whenever you create a relation. That is kind of the soap opera way of doing it, except soap operas tend to do it with soap opera based cliches. Um, it's still the same tool set. It's just I don't want to go into to descriptions of quality, but it's just a different style. I think that's a fairly nice way to put it. Um, but it is the same way that you could imagine soap operas being made, and I'm sure that it's still the way many soap operas are made. I don't know how all soap operas are made. I just know a few of them, and that is where I have a lot of this from, the basics of it at least. But beyond this, there is the question of whether the other, whether person B even knows person A is there. Um, One is that it might not, person B might not even notice person A, but person A may not want to be noticed. Person A may want to influence person B secretly or discreetly at least. Person A may be doing it on behalf of someone else, of a person C somewhere, and that's where it starts to broaden out into this complicated web of relations. You can start out by creating some basic relations between maybe just a person A and a person B, but maybe you have a few sets. You have, let's say, four different sets of person A and B, all isolated from one another, all who want something for the other, and you create their relations independently. But then you have other relations around them, people who react to those relations, people. Someone might not like one person A doing what they do. They may want another person A doing it instead. And you can already see how this is where it becomes kind of complicated. But if you set it up right, if you write out or write down these little pieces about how each relation works, then it becomes fairly easy. It's like looking at a big city and seeing how complicated and messy and chaotic it is. But if you just sit down and start making a map of the city one street at a time, you will eventually get there. And it's the same with this. You make one relation at a time and then you broaden it out to see how other relations deal with that. And if you are doing very high intrigue, then these webs of relations can become ridiculous. But at the same time, if they are kept very, I don't know if tight is the right word, if they're very streamlined, if they're very focused, if they are crafted well, then it will all make sense beyond each of the different relation. I'm trying not to use the word synergy, but the whole really is more than the parts if done right. All of these relations may seem like they are little itty bitty relations that don't affect the world at large. It's just people reacting to people. But if there is something very central to the whole thing, something that is central to the storyline, then it becomes more focused. It becomes more synergetic. Ugh, I hate that word. Corporate meetings, corporate seminars have ruined the meaning of of the word synergy. It's ruined the beauty of the idea. But yeah, if say you have this huge web of 25 people with relations between them, but all those relations somehow spring from one event, like say um, the murder of a person, or a failed jewel jewel heist, or the discovery of an ancient artifact. If all these relations, even if they're not directly about this one thing, if they kind of spring from it, or are influenced by it, or influence it, then it all has a focus. Maybe A wants B to be happy, and A knows that B, or A believes at least, that B is unhappy because of an a mysterious accident that is at the center of the story. Let's say that B's sister was killed in an accident that a lot of questions still float around about. An investigation is going on around the accident, and A wants B to be happy in spite of losing their sister. And someone is I'm going to simplify the relations here, or all this video will be an hour long. A wants B to be happy in spite of losing her sister, but person C um, is very annoyed by this, not because they have anything to do with the sister's death, but because they don't want person A in person B's life. Person C does not trust person A because they have some kind of history together. Or maybe person C even believes that person A has something to do with the accident. So person C is going to want person A to back off, and will do certain things to make sure that happens, or to try to make sure that happens at least. And person A will react to that. And maybe person B seeks comfort in a person D, in the company of a person D, or seeks answers to the entire thing with person D. And a lot of these relations are not directly about the accident, but they make the story, and they make fertile grounds for someone who understands the relations to use them in some way, maybe to get information. This is basically the basis for a detective noir story. A detective discovers all these relations between people and starts to try to use them. Maybe the detective uses person C's distrust and dislike of person A to make person C tell the detective a lot of the backstory about person A. But the detective also knows person C's relation to person A, and knows that maybe person C is not quite truthful. Person C wants person A to look bad, after all. And if you start by just creating a lot of relations, you have the basis for intrigue in a story. Maybe all the relations will not be be pursued in a story. Maybe not all relations will be described as much in the story as one might expect when creating the relation map, or the intrigue map. But having them makes it possible to create very complicated intrigue stories that still seem coherent. It seems like a lot of planning, but it really isn't. The story itself can still be written very much on the fly. You just know a lot about the people involved. It's not entirely an unplanned story written on the fly, but the story itself can still be. The intrigue just isn't. The intrigue is planned, but the story as it unfolds can still be written on the fly. Maybe when you're 5 chapters in, you realize, oh, the detective would actually discover this particular relation between person F and person W. I don't know. Um, and it would be logical for the detective to be interested in that, even though it's not something that's very central to whatever the story is about. But it would be interesting to the detective. It would be logical for the detective to look into it, and that could lead the detective to realize something about person W and figure out that person W has an unexpected relation to person K. The relation is mapped out. It might not be important from the beginning, but it's there, and what is discovered through the story might not be what you expect to be discovered at first. Of course, if you are the type who likes extensive planning, then this is definitely for you. But just because you plan the intrigue and plan out a lot of the main relations between people in the story doesn't mean that you have to plan out the entire story. It just means you have something to describe. It's no different than knowing a city very well and then setting a story there and having your knowledge of the city show as you tell the story. This is just your knowledge of the relations between a lot of people. I could explain it in more depth, but that would make this a marathon video, and I'm not quite ready to do those yet. Maybe one day. But for now, this is the basics of creating relations between people. And I will go into some advanced or extended versions of this in the next couple of videos. So stay tuned.